All right, good morning, everyone. Thank you so much for joining us. We'll go ahead and get started. My name is Amanda Patterson, and I am a program manager here at the Texas Education Agency, and I'm working closely on the Texas Home Learning Project. We are recording this session today, so it'll be available online at texashomeLearning.org/summer, hopefully by the end of the day today, but more likely tomorrow. Please pop any questions you have in the Q&A. We are happy to answer questions as we go, and so keep that live with whatever questions you have. Today, we're talking about the summer learning framework that is part of Texas Home Learning. The summer learning framework helps districts with designing, planning, and onboarding some supports for a high quality summer learning program. So there are three main components of TEA's summer learning framework. First is a statewide webinar series, which we are here now. There are about 10 sessions throughout the last week and this week, and they are designed to support you with design, academics, operations. Today, we're specifically talking about Eureka Math TEKS Edition, which supports with K-5 math curriculum. Then there's a second bucket that's all planning tools and resources. Think of it like a resource library to help you plan out what goes into a summer program. And then lastly, we have our Texas Home Learning summer units. So all of our Texas Home Learning curriculum solutions have provided really excellent guidance on how you can use these products for your summer program. All of these supports are optional. You can opt into any or all parts. So today we were focusing on the summer units. A quick reminder of our COVID recovery instructional materials support initiative. We call it CRIMSI because you cannot say that full name over and over again. We have a few different ways you can participate in CRIMSI. First, right now we have some spring adoption coaching for next year, if you're interested in planning for next year. Then we have our summer pilot, where you can implement one of our programs this summer, and the deadline for that is actually Friday. So if you are interested in applying, please get that in. Stipends are available for our summer CRIMSI participants. So because we're going to ask for some feedback and some onboarding to get you going, there is a $1,000 stipend for all of our educators who participate in summer CRIMSI. But there's also the option to just use the resources without being a part of summer CRIMSI. It is all open source for you to use as you need. And then our last CRIMSI option that I want to share with you is next year we have a full pilot option. So if your district is interested in trying some of the materials for the full school year, that application is now open and does not close until June. So there's a lot of ways for you to get involved and get some support for using these amazing resources. So here's an overview of our webinar series. You can see there is a lot going on. That green box is where we are today. We're specifically talking about Math K-5 Eureka Math TEKS Edition for use during your summer program. There have been a couple products that have already had their webinars, and the recording is available on our website, texashomeLearning.org/summer, as well as all of these design and implementation. Those are all up ready for you. And then this week, we continue to have more products and support to help you plan. Here's a quick look at our summer learning planning tool. This is basically your roadmap for planning your high quality summer program. Right now, we are at number 5, that beautiful purple, thinking about high quality instructional materials. We're going to have kids come during the summer. What is the amazing work we're going to have them do to help them accelerate their learning? So I am now going to pass it off to the wonderful Eureka Math team, who is going to talk us through how you can use Eureka Math TEKS Edition this summer. So we have Jada, Josh, and Michael all here with us today, who are a wealth of knowledge. So I'll pass it over to them. Let me stop my share so they can get set up.
Hi, everyone. Let's see. Amanda, can you come off mute and let me know if you guys can see my screen and see a slide of 3 Eureka Math?
All good. Yep, we see hello.
Hello from the Eureka Math team. Wonderful. Well, my name is Michael Norton, and I'm one of the managers on the Eureka Math TEKS Edition project. And flanking me, we have Josh and Jada. So Josh, Jada, if you guys would come off mute, introduce yourselves.
Hi, everyone. Thank you for having me. I'm Josh Galindo. I'm the Regional Strategic Sales Manager. And you will come to know me if you look for rostering, professional development, anything like that. I am your catch-all for anything Great Minds here in Texas.
Hello and welcome. My name is Jada Singleton, and I am the implementation leader for Great Minds and the implementation leader for Texas. So I am here to support you and help you to have a successful implementation summer process.
Excellent. Thank you, Josh and Jada. Well, we are really excited and honored to be here and to be a part of the Summer School CRIMSI. So without further ado, let's get into it. All right. So certainly by the end of today, you are going to have the what, right? So the list of Eureka modules that we are recommending for Summer CRIMSI. But and we'll also talk about the how, sort of how to access, and we'll get into a little bit of guidance of how to use them. But before we get into the what and the how, we're going to start with the why, which is how does the approach that Eureka Math takes to scaffolding unfinished learning inform our Summer CRIMSI plans? So let's start with the why. I was talking with a principal friend of mine just a few days ago, and we were debating about whether we think that this current school year or the school year that's coming up and it's going to start in August is going to be more difficult. Which of those 2 years is going to be harder? And of course, this year has been tremendously difficult. But what we were thinking about and what that conversation brought to light was that, you know, we're so eager for things to return to normal in August. And even if we do return to normal school operations, August isn't going to feel normal. We'll want it to, but it probably won't, because we will be confronted face to face with the enormous amount of loss from this year, loss in all areas of our lives, and certainly loss in terms of what students would have otherwise learned had it not been for our current situation. And so the question that we were talking about was, you know, do we stare back at what was lost this past year, or how do we take perhaps a forward-looking approach? And so given that, I want to give you guys a chance to pause and think and reflect on this question. How is summer school typically used? So what would be a common approach for planning instruction for summer school? So who might attend and what would they learn? And I'm going to give you 20 seconds just to reflect on your own on those questions. So you might have thought something like, well, we look at some summative assessment, we identify students who aren't yet performing proficient on grade level, we identify some low performing standards, and then we plan a series of kind of brief segments to teach some of those, quote, high leverage or low performing standards, perhaps readiness standards. You know, maybe the words remediation or repeat testing came to mind. So I want you to keep that approach in mind as we move through the rationale for why we're choosing the modules we're choosing for Summer CRIMSI. We're going to compare this sort of looking back at the previous year approach to a looking ahead approach. But before we do that, let's walk through some implications of this looking back approach through a very simple but concrete example, right? It's not going to be a comprehensive example, it's just meant to be illustrative. So imagine we have a group of students who are transitioning from 3rd grade going into 4th grade. We might review, and we wanted to plan summer school for them. We might review all the 3rd grade data standards on multiplication and division. Look for those low performing standards and plan instruction accordingly. And all that is driven by this question of which students aren't yet proficient in which grade 3 standards for multiplication and division. So we pull up our list of standards. It's quite long. Obviously, it's so long that I can't fit it on the screen in a way that you guys can read it. And then we plan our instruction from there. Even if we're able to succeed, and this is quite an overwhelming process, even if we're able to succeed, the best outcome is that the students we're starting to, quote, fill some gaps, but the students are experiencing this months after when we would have ideally gotten them, they would have ideally been proficient in these standards. So let's consider a slightly different approach. So same scenario, we have the same 3rd grade students going into 4th grade, and we're planning for summer instruction. We're going to start with a different question. Previously, it was what were the low performing standards from their 3rd grade summative assessment, but now it's which students aren't yet proficient in the foundational content for multiplication for this coming school year, and the content that I can't scaffold during the course of grade 4 instruction. In other words, it's what's foundational for what's coming, not where are the quote gaps from what we've already covered. Now this list is much more manageable, right? So we've distilled this down to a handful of key essential foundational pieces of knowledge that we can't scaffold during the course of grade 4 instructional multiplication and division. And now we've got a list of things that we think we can legitimately accomplish over the course of some shorter instruction over the summer. Now, of course, in both instances, data informs our plans, but the starting place is what's essential moving forward, not what was missed in the past. And the outcome of this is that we now are preparing students to be proficient on grade level. So best case scenario, students have quote, caught up. Now, this is, again, a practical example. It's meant to be concrete to help illustrate a point. And I'm sure you have many questions about kind of the how of this approach. But before we get into that, we're going to zoom out and broaden our view of Eureka Math's approach to scaffolding unfinished learning. Our approach is to determine the foundational knowledge students need to access, that is to learn the upcoming grade level content, and to teach that foundational knowledge to students who need it immediately prior to that grade level module. So what that means practically is that we're looking ahead to what students will be learning, identifying that knowledge, who has it, and then teaching students that information so that when they get to grade level instruction, they are performing at grade level as they work through in this case, their grade 4 multiplication. And there are two very powerful outcomes with this approach. The first one is that students experience math as a coherent story, right? Because what they are experiencing in this intervention or scaffolded learning time is connected to what they're learning in grade level instruction, or is taught right before it, they continue to see that math is a continuous story and not that it's just a disparate set of skills that they each need to master in isolation. The second one, and by far the most powerful, is that this gives students an opportunity to access and reach grade level proficiency. You know, we invest a lot of time in what we call, broadly what we call intervention, and it's a time-intensive experience and an emotionally intensive experience for all of us. But in this case, you know, what we're solving for is actually getting kids to perform on grade level. Now, there are obviously a variety of times and structures to utilize this approach in any context during the school year, but we're going to talk specifically about summer. So what are the implications for summer? Well, we decided to, based on this approach, decided to select modules that students are going to need as they enter into their grade level. This is a looking forward approach. So in other words, what module from grade 2 is foundational for students as they begin grade 3? And that's how we landed where we did. Now, I've just gone over some framing and the rationale, the why behind what we chose, why we chose what we did. So for now, I want to take 60 seconds to have you guys kind of process that information. So very broad question. What are you currently thinking about based on what we just covered? So do you have any aha moments? What stands out? What wonderings do you have? So take 30 seconds, and I believe you guys can use the chat. And so if you're able to, drop your reflections in the chat to the panelists and the attendees. And we'll spend 60 seconds here. It's a great question, Kimberly. Yes, for Summer CRIMSI. I'm going to show you some examples of the modules that we chose, and you'll get to see that connection from current grade level to the upcoming grade level. What other reflections or aha moments or questions do you have? Kim, what a wonderful reflection. Yeah, imagine, Kim, if, for all that may have been lost this past year, if your students, once they start into their upcoming grade level, are actually proficient, demonstrating mastery on their grade level content because of what you did in the summer. Absolutely, Heidi. Well, we're hoping to solve for the resources here today. Time, we have not figured out how to expand time yet. Yes, so Heidi, for everybody, Heidi said that she believes an aggressive pre-teach will help reduce the impact of learning loss. The difficulty, of course, is finding the time and the resources to make it happen. And so I realized it only went to the panelists. So hopefully this webinar and all the webinars that the team are hosting are providing or solving for that resources question. Kimberly asked, just to the panelists, not to all the attendees, is this preparation approach the method used to determine the recommended units for CRIMSI materials? This approach is informing the summer CRIMSI materials. Okay, we're going to move on. Continue to drop reflections that you have in the chat as we move forward. So what went into, and summarizing all this framing and this rationale, what went into actually picking the modules? So we, in order to equip students with the foundational knowledge for what's going to happen in the early part of the coming school year, we prioritize modules that prepare students to access content in the early modules of the upcoming year and or are the major work of that upcoming school year. And then the second criteria was that we prioritize modules that we could adapt to fit within your summer school schedules without losing the coherence of the module, because that story is one of the bedrocks of Eureka Math TEKS. So on the next slide, you'll actually see the recommended modules by grade level. And so I'm going to put that slide up, give you guys 15 seconds to process, and then I'll voice over a few key points. So here we have the grade level and the module, the title of the module, and the length of the full module, as well as the amount of time for assessment. So a few things to note. First, these are the 2021 grade levels. So if a student is currently in second grade and it will be moving into third grade, their module will be grade 2, module 6, Foundations of Multiplication, Division, and Area. Second, grade 4 has 2 recommendations. We recommend module 5. However, if you taught module 5 as part of Spring CRIMSI, then we are recommending module 3. Now, as you can see, that these modules vary in length, and so we're going to talk a little bit about the how. I'm not going to get into all the details for how to adapt every single one of these modules. That will come in a resource in a few weeks, but we're going to go through some information that's representative of the kind of guidance that you will get. All right, so what is that information going to be? We're going to be providing, your proverbial one-pagers with a couple different categories of information. One, the overview and rationale for why we chose this module and what it prepares students for. 2, how the content and the models and the terms progress and connect from this module to the upcoming grade levels module? And then 3, what are the recommendations to consolidate or to fit the module given your school calendar? So on the next slide, I'm going to give you a couple examples of what each of these buckets of information would look like. Now, again, this is representative, it's not comprehensive, but I want you to see it. And I would love for you, as you read this, to consider, is this information useful? What would make it more useful? And to drop that feedback to the panelists in the chat. And we'll consider that as we finish out putting together this guidance. So I'm going to give you 30 seconds to read over the next slide. It's a grade 2 module 6 overview, and then we'll have a few talking points. So here you see the rationale for why this module was chosen and specifically what it prepares students for. And then we have an example of the progression, in this case of models, and how the models are used in service of the progression of content, which transitions from repeated addition of a certain number of equal size groups to using multiplication to represent and find the total of equal size groups. Again, this is representative, it's not fully comprehensive. But be thinking about what about this is useful, what other information might be helpful. Next, we're going to go to a grade kinder guidance, and we're going to focus on the familiar terms and the lesson consolidation information that we'll be providing you guys. Here we go. I'll give you, this next slide is a little bit more text heavy, so I'm going to give you 45 seconds to read. So as you see here, we will have the list of key terms that you all should emphasize during summer school, because these are the terms that students need to be familiar with as they move into the following grade level. And then second, you'll see some examples of lesson consolidation. So the actual consolidation recommendations has quite a few bullet points. I just was not trying to give you everything, simply represent the kind of guidance that you'll be given. So now that you've gone through the framing, the rationale, we've talked a little bit about the what and the how. I would love for you, I'll give you 60 seconds, to drop in the chat to the panelists any reflections or feedback you have for us about what of this information as it relates to the guidance is useful, and what might we consider as we continue to build out this guidance. And once we do that, I will then hand it over to Josh to talk about how to access the materials. We'll take 60 seconds for consolidation and feedback, and then we'll move forward. Excellent. Thank you, Kim. So Kim's comment is that the consolidation will be very useful, given that her summer school is 20 days. Good question, Amanda. We'll look into that here shortly. Take another 15 seconds to wrap up any final reflections or questions you have for us. And then I'll pass it on to Josh. And Abby, thank you for your recommendation about number bonds. Okay, I'm going to hand this over to Josh, our account solutions manager. Some of you may know him as a local hero across the entire state. Josh, I'm going to keep presenting, right? Okay, you just tell me when it's time for me to click.
Sounds good. You can click on to the next one. So the next few slides, I'm just going to kind of lead everyone through how to access the resources, the various ways that you can access it. So the first way you can access the materials is if you navigate to texashomelearning.org. On the home page, it's going to ask you, I think you can choose your grade level or by subject. The easiest, right, you can click by subject and then math grade 5. You'll see the Eureka math window, and then you can click on register here. This will also take you to the main page. When you click on register here, so click on the next page, Michael. So another way that you may also see the page when accessing it is greatminds.org/math for Texas. And so on there, you will also see two different ways: individual access or school and district access. So on the next one, when I click on individual access, the next slide, it's going to take you to a Google form. Now, this Google form is for personal email addresses. You're going to get the read-only version of InSync, meaning you're going to get access to all of the files, all the daily lesson videos, your teacher editions, student worksheets, and so forth when signing up through this individual sign-up page. One thing that I just want to highlight is that this is for personal emails. If you use a school or a district email address, they won't authorize that email because the push is that would be that districts would roster. And so we would want to wait when the district rosters to have your school email address authorized then. So if you're looking as a district over the summer that's particularly looking to pilot, one option is you can have your teacher sign up for the personal sign-in sheet, or the push that we've been having is for the district to roster. So on the next slide. So the reason why we push for district rostering, there are different ways that a district could roster. They can Clever roster, they can Google SSO, and as we move into the upcoming school year, we'll add in additional integration pieces. An integration piece that is already available is through Schoology. So when a district is rostered in Schoology and a district is rostered in our site, the district administrator is able to LTI integrate the two systems, so students would get a true single sign-on experience when using Schoology with our platform. Now, the other piece of why I really push districts to roster is once a district rosters, they see the additional equip informational pieces added. So before, when you're looking at the personal account, you're going to see all of your topic information, the module overviews, your lesson information. When you're rostered through your district or school account, you will see all of the additional equip modules, which are pre-diagnostic assessments for every module. And so all those resources are available when the district opts into roster with us. Now, one of the things that we're gonna be building out as just another support page is all of the guidance that Michael mentioned. We're going to be putting in one place so that you're able to access everything at one site and are not having to navigate to different places. Now, this would be in addition to the support that you're already receiving through the summer guidance with TEA CRIMSI. So just to let you know, the asynchronous supports and some of the other pieces will all be on here. Those one pagers that Michael mentioned will also be able to be accessed through this page here.
Josh, Kimberly has a question for us in the chat.
Yes, so different districts have opted it differently depending on the number of their pilot teachers. Some have said, we have 1 to 2 teachers, we're just going to have them do the personal email address access. I can also provide you with trial login access so that they're able to see the entire demo of the site. Nothing is limited when they do it that way. The other way, when a district opts into Clever Roster, in Clever, you're just sharing the users that you want to be shared with us. If it's just your pilot teachers, once they're shared through Clever, we will authenticate those users. As you need to change or you add on more teachers that you need to, the Clever administrator can just add in those additional users and the resync will catch those new ones. And so the one pagers and all of the recommendation document units, TEA will have them. We will also post them on the support page so that you'll be able to access them from various sites, just to ensure that everyone gets access to them. Yes, Cindy. So even if you just have a few teachers, you can still Clever roster. You can have 5 teachers or 100 teachers all through Clever. So the users you share with us are the ones that will be credentialed. And once they're in through the district rostering, we'll have access to equip as well, in addition to everything that you saw with the personal account. To do anything with rostering at Great Minds, you can contact me. I'll drop my email in the chat. It was also posted in the very beginning. And on the greatminds.org/Texas, you'll see a contact us form. And if you complete that one, it will also take you directly to me when you complete that form, or you can email me directly.
Yeah, more questions coming your way, Josh.
Yes, Kimberly, when looking at the Clever accounts, students, if you have a particular group of students that you already know are identified for summer school, you can have them Clever rostered as well. And so when the Clever roster students would access Great Minds in Sync through their Clever dashboard, they'll see an app picture. And then when they click on that one, we'll allow them access to In Sync. And if you email me, I can provide you a trial login so that you can see what the student side sees in addition to the teacher side as well.
Amanda, do we do double wait time in the Zoom meeting? Cutting down from 14. So as you guys have questions, please drop them in the chat.
Yeah, we've had some great questions. If you still have questions, we'll hang out for a few more minutes. You're welcome to drop them in the chat or put them in the Q&A. Otherwise, huge thank you to everybody who took the time to join us today. Huge thank you to the Great Minds team, and we will get this recording posted ASAP for anyone else who wants to get this information. Thank you all. We are hanging out, so if you have additional questions, go ahead and pop them in the chat or the Q&A. We do not mind at all. We have the time held until noon, so here for whatever you need. Josh, I see Kimberly's question about just getting access to the curriculum without needing to roster. Is the best way to do that to set up a personal account?
Yeah, setting up the personal account, or they can just email me directly and I'll give them a trial login so that they can access it as well.
And Josh, do we have any login information for a trial, or would it be best to get a personal account?
Yes, I'm gonna pull a document and drop it in right now for them. And pull it up.
We also had a question come in about Spanish unit recommendations, and we will post that one in our FAQ once we confirm that the Spanish materials will be ready in time and make sure that it's the same unit. So we will get that answer to you. And I believe it was Georgina who asked that. I will write down your information to make sure that we directly follow up with you on that answer.
And then Kimberly, I saw your message. If you want to send me an email, I can troubleshoot you your account directly with the digital team.
All right, thank you all so much. If any questions come up, you have Josh's email. He loves getting a million Texas emails a day, so please don't hesitate to reach out. And then you can also email us at the Texas Home Learning team. We are always happy to help as well. Texas Home Learning at tea.texas.gov. I will pop that in the chat for you. And thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you all so much.
Thank you all.
Thank you.
Oh, that just went to panelists.
I had to resend the login link because I realized it went to panelists only.
Got it.
There you go.